Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now, for your host, Matt Haney.
Here we are today. Welcome to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, joined with a friend of mine, Byron Attridge. Byron and I have known each other for a little bit now, but I've enjoyed really getting to know him. Byron, tell us about you and how the hell we know each other.
Oh, man. Matt, I don't even remember how we got introduced, but as I recall, you came to me and said, "Hey, look, you're doing this EOS thing, and I'm trying to help some companies out by coming in and filling in as an integrator." And I thought that was like the neatest concept ever. And
I definitely came banging on your door. I'll be perfectly clear. I was the one approaching you. I was courting Byron. Yes, that happened.
And so when we started talking, there obviously was a really, really poignant values alignment that, you and I really sort of meshed up immediately. You have a pretty fun and playful and, at times raw kind of style, which is along the lines of,
you definitely, I would definitely characterize you with all of those compliments as well.
And so I think we hit it off and we're fast friends, right off the bat. And so that being the case, I immediately wanted to learn because when you approached me, I was only a couple of years into the practice, and I was trying to figure out how I could bring as many resources to my clients as I possibly could in order to inure to their benefit. Yeah. And one of the things that I do as a general proposition is I surround myself with kind of a tool belt of resources that when somebody asks for something that I can't necessarily help them really well with, I won't go down that rabbit hole with them. I'll look to one of my experts to say, one of my trusted advisors to say, "Hey, client, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, would you like some help with that?" And, when they say yes, then I introduce them to you and, let you guys suss it out and try to figure out, if that's a good fit to try to help their business.
That's such a great comment. And when you said that, it triggered something for me, which is like, good leaders I know aren't good at everything. And the best leaders I know will be the ones that run to the front of the line and tell you, that's not my strong suit. That's not me. I can read a balance sheet. I can read a profit and loss statement. But if you want me to do, cash flow modeling and financial analysis for high growth, I can figure it out, but it's kind of like going to the doctor for your shoulder. I want the guy that knows how to do it, not the person that's learning. And unfortunately, someone has to teach. But at this point, I want to surround myself like you with experts in their field. So I love that you referenced that. It's funny. I remember the first time we had lunch. You remember where that was? I do. It was at Honest Mary's in the Arboretum. It was just after it opened. Yeah. And I remember I was like, I'm going to take this guy to lunch. I'm going to learn something. And I was like, I want to go to this place, Honest Mary's. And we sat up there and had lunch, and that was cool. And then since then,
what was interesting about that?
What?
What was interesting about that was that they were a client of mine.
Interesting.
And actually a client that I asked that question to, I said, "Hey, do you want to take a look at maybe bringing in an integrator?" And, not that Nelson wasn't a great integrator himself, but he over time, I think, is envisioning himself to move into that visionary seat.
Right.
So I still think there's something there to talk to him about, because eventually he's going to want somebody in that integrator.
Those guys have a great product. I love it.
Oh, they do.
I've got a couple questions I want to ask you. And the agenda here is just that we want to share wisdom and knowledge and try to give the folks listening something that they didn't have before they jumped in. So we'll keep going, ask some questions. It's real loose. It's you and me having a chat. So one of the questions I'd love to know as an implementer, give me, and I want hard ones and obscure ones, and don't feel like you can't jump from one story to the next, because the value is you telling us this and the uniqueness. Okay. Tell me what, Fair enough. One of the biggest or most unique challenges you've navigated in a session. And that can be all over the place.
One of the most unique, a large software team. And when I say large, their entire size is not large, but their leadership team was really large.
Oh, man.
And disproportionately large for the size company they were. They were a 50-person company, have a 12-person leadership team.
Yeah,
And,
a lot of bodies in the room.
A lot of bodies in the room. And to add to the difficulties there, every single person in that room probably could have qualified for Mensa. Like, insanely smart.
Incredible talent, incredible
intelligence, all the way across the board and whatever else. And I love that team. And I've been working with them for 2 years now. And we've grown to have a great relationship, and they have come an amazingly long way. So I'm going to go ahead and front that and then back into what I saw when I first met with them was this huge leadership team for a tiny company and incredible intelligence, which usually comes along with a lot of ego.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I am worried.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about taking you on as a client. I just said it straight up front. First meeting I had with. And the reason I'm worried about taking you on as a client is because I think you guys may be too smart for your own good.
Can't get out of your own way.
Yeah, they literally, I mean, you could hear the collective, breath. It was like, and they all looked at me like this, and then they started laughing. And I was like, did I touch a nerve? And they were like, you nailed us.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, maybe we got a little bit of self-awareness and everything. And so it was kind of one of those things where we had to talk through that. And I made them commit to me. I said, look, I'll do this with you under one condition. If you commit to me that you're going to check that ego to the best of your ability at the door when you come in here and we're working together, because that is going to be your main impediment. And they said, absolutely, dead to rights, we're going to do it. And they've done a phenomenal job. Was it perfect? Absolutely not.
Right.
But they have done a phenomenal job at checking their egos. And
well, wait,
really,
I have a question. Does the leadership team still consist of 12 people?
No, they have pared it down. Not a ton, but they definitely have. They've shrunk it down to 9.
Well, tell me, how did you guys get that done? Because I've been there as well, and I want to know, because the secret sauce, the magic, is not upsetting or dejecting or dismissing those people that are no longer a part of the leadership team. But that's freaking hard, Byron. You just told somebody you sat at the big table, and now you got to go sit at the kids' table.
I'm not gonna try to put lipstick on the pig. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And in their annual last summer is when it first came up. And to say it was an explosive topic is an understatement.
Yeah.
There were,
because you got to surface it with everybody, right? You mean you can't just, I mean, maybe you circulated the idea behind the table with some of the seasoned folks or the CEO, but like at some point,
I already talked to the whole team about it.
Okay.
The whole team knew it was there and on the table, and it was sitting at the top of their issues list. And when we got to ISISOL, we got to IDS in the annual, which is, at the end of 2 days of a lot of stuff, a lot of emotional roller coaster and everything else. And we've done all the planning, whatever. All right, it's time for IDS. What do you guys want to tackle? And one of them goes, hey, top of the list. Top of the list is, leadership team size. And I was like, okay, y'all want to tackle that? Let's dive in.
Go.
And we, so to kind of truncate it a little bit, because it can be a long story, but to basically, it got volatile. It got very volatile.
Mm-hmm.
And emotions were running really, really, really high.
Yeah.
And I said, hang on, guys. I want y'all to remember what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it so that you can go faster. You guys said that was the big objective. You needed to move faster. You cannot move faster with 12 people running a 50-person company. Because it's like decision by committee on every single thing that you're doing, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, you've got the structure in order to facilitate the communication up and down the line. All we have to do is just kind of retool that structure so that everybody has plenty of voice and they're going to get heard and their ideas are going to make it up to the top.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then it's not going to feel, terrible or bad or anything else. It's just going to feel great when everybody is able to settle into that and you guys are able to go faster. And they did it. Eventually they got it done. And
how many quarters ago do you think that was? Like, if you were to guess, I'm trying to figure out where they are today.
We're 3 quarters into that.
And what are the takeaways?
They're doing phenomenally well.
Yeah.
They're doing phenomenally well. So the biggest thing from a gain perspective that they got to is, instead of doing a bunch of run around and break fix and whatever else, they really, really got their software roadmap under control with the smaller leadership team.
Nice.
Because it wasn't so chaotic in trying to say, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And everything. And so they got together a structure and they socialized that with the rest of the company, even the people that used to be on the leadership team, and said, hey, I need you to tell me, what am I not seeing here?
Right.
And so those people got heard. They got heard totally. And they made some adjustments after that. And then they lived into it. And then all of a sudden they started paying off, in a figurative sense.
Sure.
They started paying off all this technical debt that they had built up by strapping a bunch of stuff together just to make it work. And
That's
now
awesome.
they have a solid platform and they are trucking.
That's awesome.
They're absolutely trucking, and their profitability. In fact, that's like one of the examples of the greatest gains of any of my clients. They had a 312% increase in revenue and a 687% increase in profitability. Holy shit, over those 3 quarters.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad to hear that making those big changes is not something that I know you nor I genuinely look forward to. But I will say, and I'm speaking for you and myself when I say this, there's nothing more rewarding than working with a team to make hard decisions and coming through the other side and saying, we just did all that shit. Then now this is the fun part. I know we had to make those big changes, but let's go crush it now because we get the right people.
Absolutely. So for a real funny add-on to that is I have a joke with them that literally almost every session, I'm like, let's see if I can say at least 2 or 3 things that should get me fired today. And they all laugh and whatever else. And they're like, yeah. Because, if I'm earning my salt, I'm kicking over the rock.
That's right. No, that's exactly right.
I'm kicking over the rocks to say, hey guys, I'm sorry. I know this doesn't feel good, but that's just steaming college, and you're going to have to deal with it.
And
you can't
before
just
we
leave
all
it there.
step in it together. And I always say, like, listen, you're not paying me to sit here and nod and agree with you on everything. You want outside perspective, and I'm going to give it to you. Don't take it if it's not good, but I'm at least going to tell you, what color the board is before it hits you in the face. Right?
Nice.
Okay, let's keep moving. I got a couple other questions. So, well, first of all, I want to get into 2 things. First of all, industries that you work with or have worked with first. And then second, I want to talk about Scorecard because I'm going to forget to talk about Scorecard. But first, tell me about industries. Give me an example, because here's what everyone says to me. Oh, well, what you're doing is different. My business is different. Da, da, da. I'm like, listen, pal, all businesses operate in the same 5 pillars of business process and units. But anyway, tell me the industries or if you have any specialties that you've worked with or any commonalities.
Well, so the short answer is no.
All right. No is the short answer.
I don't specialize in industries, and I don't believe in doing it for me. Okay. It's okay to do that. And there are plenty of implementers that do. Like, I have colleagues that will specialize in family businesses, or they'll specialize in contracting and construction.
Yeah.
I have ones that specialize with architects. I have ones that specialize with car dealerships, so on and so forth. I find that for me, I glean so many more insights that are relevant to my clients that are from outside of their industries that I can impart to them
Right.
that provide genuinely different perspective on the problems that they're having. And I think that to me is a lot more valuable than, staying in the lane. And a testament to that is, as well as anybody else, I've introduced you into companies that you haven't had any industry expertise in, particularly because I don't think that's a requirement for an integrator, a fractional integrator.
Totally agree.
You can be a great integrator for an industry you've never been in, and sometimes an even better one.
Exactly.
Because
I'm going to tell you a quick segue on this.
You're not seeing the weeds like everybody else is. You're seeing the landscape.
I'm seeing the forest, not the trees. So one of my favorite books to read, if you haven't read it, is called Range, R-A-N-G-E. And the subtitle is How a Generalist Succeeds in a World of Specialization.
Okay.
So how a generalist succeeds in a world of specialization. The first chapter is called Range, R-A-N-G. The first chapter is called Roger versus Tiger. And it's referring to Roger Federer and Tiger Woods, both arguably the greatest in their craft. Now, Tiger Woods has played one sport his whole life. He was on Johnny Carson at the age of 3 swinging a golf club. Roger Federer played every sport under the sun until he was a teenager and then specialized in tennis. Both of them, 2 different backgrounds, 2 different unique skills, and both of them got to their mastery in different ways. But I look at Federer, who is an incredible athlete. And when you talk to a lot of high-level coaches, they talk about the kids that can do other things because they're not so singular focused on being the best at what they do. Yeah, they are, because you're either wired that way or you're not. But they have the skill to be all the different things that you can see. So I tell you that because it makes me think about what you said. Oftentimes people are asking me, well, you don't know my business. And I'm like, no, that's the beauty. Well, that's just the beauty of what I do, is that I get to see all these different things. But it's hard to overcome that, Byron. I mean, people ask us like, you don't know my business. It's like, oh, I know. So anyway, I'm going to get some more from you on that, because I'm sure you have that conversation too.
Yeah, let me add something to that. And here's an analog for it. How do you think that most people hire? They go and they look at somebody's resume and they look at their skills and experience, and they talk about their skills and experience in the interview and this and that and the other. And at best, they talk about core values as an afterthought.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reality is the core values are actually more important.
Yeah.
Than the skills and experience, because your core values you're going to have a hell of a hard time teaching.
Yep.
Because people have gotten set in their core values, and if those align, that's great. If they don't, then you can't do a whole lot about them. And so when you do it all the way around and you say, hey, no, you got to have the fundamentals, which is that core values piece in an analog.
Yep.
And then if you got the skills and experience on top of that, great. We got something to go on. And so, I liken it to that in the sense that understanding fundamentals and understanding what the job entails from a fundamental standpoint is way more important than understanding whether they make widgets or wadgets.
Right.
Or how those widgets are made or any of that kind of stuff. Because as an integrator, you are a quarterback. You're not making sausage.
That's exactly right.
You're a quarterback, and so you're not making widgets. You're not down in there turning the crank and everything. You're trying to figure out how to make all these people play well together and how to make them successful and get them the resources they need in order to be successful.
No, that's exactly right. And that's hard because it's I'm dealing with this. It's interesting. I'll tell a quick segue. I'm dealing with that very same issue with a client now who, most people don't have experience working with a fractional COO or fractional integrator, and that's great. So a lot of my time is spent educating them on what we do and what we don't do. It's very hard to say to a visionary leader who's, by the way, hired you to help them with their business, hey, you don't want me documenting process. That's not my best skill, and I'm going to screw it up. Because they're like, well, wait, I hired you to do all this. And this is like, no, what we do is bring the team together and make sure that we're aligned on all the different things that we need to do. And then I get to help you hold yourself accountable and others. So I had to go through that process recently. But most importantly, talk about vulnerability. This visionary this week just rolled out his core values and is just now doing his quarterly conversations and his people analyzer. And he said, I want to roll this out. I want you to do the people analyzer on me in front of 55 people on a virtual meeting. It's like, I want everybody on the call. And he's like, and I want to do it genuinely with you. And I want you to tell me plus, minus, or minus. And he said, and I want you to be really incredibly honest. And I said, hell yeah, I'm your guy. Let's party. So we went through it together and I gave him my feedback and he owned it. And it was incredibly awesome to have somebody be so vulnerable about the things that they're struggling with and show it to his entire team. It's so rare, so rare.
That's rare.
So shout out to that visionary who hopefully
absolutely
watches this and gets it. You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it. Okay, before I get us off track, because my job is to keep us on track, talk to me about Scorecard. One of the things I struggle with, being vulnerable, is adapting, changing, measuring Scorecard. I want to know your views on how often it should be looked at, red versus green. Take it away. Give me your take on the Scorecard.
So let's start with the most basic part of that question, which is how often should you be looking at it? And it's every quarter. I mean, when I say looking at it, looking at tuning it up.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be looking at it every week.
Oh, we do. We look at it. We always look at it every week.
And so that's in that L10 format, that's the thing, that's one of the centerpieces of that L10 format is making sure that you're going through your measurables on your scorecard. But in terms of tuning it up and changing your measurables, I would not be trying to do that more than once a quarter.
I find people going the other way, Byron. I got to beg them to look at it and change it.
I know.
We look at it every week, but how often are we changing it? We're like, well, we don't want to change it. I'm like, guys, I say we don't want it to be all red or all green.
Totally.
It should look like a Christmas
if you're
tree.
all red or all green, you're not doing something right. And basically what it comes down to is that the question that I ask every quarter when I'm facilitating a quarterly planning session is, okay, it's scorecard. Let's take a look at it. All right, you got it up there? Now, is this telling you what you need to know about whether your company's healthy or not healthy? If I go through every one of these, are they all telling you something meaningful about whether your company's healthy or not healthy? And I take them all the way back to focus day and I say, all right, put yourself on an island. You got no comms. You can't get in touch with anybody. There's no texting. There's no email. There's no nothing. No phone. You got no communications with your company. You get these numbers to tell you what is happening inside your company and whether your company is doing great or the wheels are off the wagon. Is that going to tell you that? And that usually kind of sparks a good discussion about, well, this one doesn't really tell us anything because we don't have good data for it. You're like, okay, well, ding. If you're putting garbage into it, you're not getting anything out of it.
Absolutely.
So either get rid of that or make it an issue that you're going to solve this quarter to get that data and make it readily available.
All right. So we're looking at it every quarter. We're making changes. How many, and again, I know this is a relative question, but I want your opinion. How many metrics are you seeing on a scorecard? More than or less than? It doesn't matter. Like what would you tell people, hey, you need
15.
5 to 15.
Yeah, 5 to 15. If you're getting any more than 15, it's too much usually.
Yeah.
And,
just because it's
the only exception that I would say to that is sometimes when you have a multi-store configuration, like you have a multi-site configuration, that that you got to have multiple or like a number from each of the stores.
Sure.
And so that might increase the number a bit.
Right. But it's the
you gotta
same metric for each store, the same common metric. And in that case, if you have 4 metrics for each store and there's 4 stores, you're going to have 16 lines in the card. But you're really measuring the 4 metrics for each store. Interesting. Well, I don't know why I get so hung up on that. I feel like sometimes that I either overthink that or don't encourage people enough to kill a metric that's not serving them. And teams a lot of times get really sensitive around reporting negative red numbers. And I'm like, listen, just because you're reporting a red number doesn't mean you're going to get fired. This is an indicator in the business. And it's maybe not necessarily an indicator of you or your team or whatnot, but don't fear the scorecard.
You may have the wrong goal in there.
You may have the wrong goal.
You may have the wrong goal in there. You may be measuring, whatever you're measuring wrong. And usually it manifests like this.
Yeah.
You got somebody in there that's sales oriented.
Yep.
And so what they do is they put the stretch goal in.
Yeah.
And so they ride in the red.
Yeah.
And that is totally untool. And I will definitely call them out on that. I will call that out every day of the week and twice on Sundays because it is super, super detrimental to the team. Now, you can do that. You can play that game with your sales team and whatever else, as long as they know what healthy looks like. Their only number can't be that stretch goal. They have to have numbers that are actually achievable.
Okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that and go with it somewhere because I was on a call earlier today about this very topic. I've got a sales team owned and managed by 2 incredible sales executives, high-level visionary medical sales client. And part of their team is not interested or doesn't necessarily understand the value of measuring activity. And activity, that word can be, you can use it how you want. You can say measuring phone calls, you can measure visits, you can measure this, you can measure that. But I'm dealing with a leadership team that's like, we're not going to ask the sales team to report on activity. And I'm like, would you bake a fucking cake without a recipe? No, you've got to know what the ingredients are. And that's what we're measuring.
Well, you measure the activity in order to the activities that you think are going to get you the outcomes that you want.
That's right.
So you're going to measure a little bit of outcome and probably more activity.
Yes.
But here's the trick. Don't think that just because you start measuring an activity, it makes it important. You may start measuring that activity and realize that's not getting us the outcomes that we want.
That's not the indicator we should be looking at.
That means you need to change the activity that you're measuring and that you're driving and that you're asking them to do because you're not getting the outcomes that you want. And so you need to change the activity that you're doing.
Yeah.
No,
you're right. And that's the part
of
having a measurable is that if you keep measuring that activity and see no change, then obviously we're not focused on the right outcome. So
you know who's good at it? The marketing people.
Really?
The marketing people are way
looking
better
at
than
pay per
experimental.
And the A/B testing.
So they do
and all
little
that stuff.
experiments, and so they don't assume that a particular activity is going to elicit the right kind of outcome. They're going to go try it.
Right.
They're going to go, okay, we're going to try this, and we're going to try this, and then we're going to see what the outcomes are. And when we measure all that, then we may come back and say, you know what, we're going to do something different.
Yeah, they're not fearful of that change. They're not fearful of it because a lot of their work is just that. They call it A/B testing. They're testing one thing to get a result, testing another thing to get a result. Interesting. All right, I'm going to keep us running. So big question. And I genuinely want to know your thoughts. What do you think the hardest thing about managing people is?
Ooh.
And I'm not going to say more because you can take that wherever you want.
The hardest thing about managing people is patience. In a word, patience. So human beings, contrary to popular belief, almost never internalize something you said to them once. Yet we expect, if we tell somebody once, for them to get it and internalize it and have it nailed dead to right.
Right.
And the reality is it's going to be 7 or maybe more times that you have to come back and iterate with them and ride alongside of them and mentor and coach and all that kind of stuff, until all of a sudden that external teaching is internalizing and they go, oh, now I know exactly what I need to do.
So I'm going to repeat this back to you. You're telling me you've got to tell the same person the same thing several times in order for them to understand.
No, not several, seven.
Seven times several. Fine, I get it. So you're telling me to be patient and realize that I've said it once. I've got to say it 6 more times, most likely in 6 different ways, in order for that person to grasp it.
Yeah, there's another piece of that.
Go.
You cannot say it. You cannot do it with frustration.
Yeah.
So this comes from PET. So this comes directly from parenting effectiveness training.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, leadership training and parenting effectiveness training, they're like crazy similar. And if you're interested in content about that, Simon Sinek has a bunch of stuff.
Oh, Simon Sinek's great. I oftentimes find myself talking to the visionary who's signing my check like he's a 4-year-old. Like, gotta be patient.
It's true. And the part about that you really have to lean into is that when you said it 3 times, typically that's when the frustration sets in. And that's when you've got to take a deep breath and you got to go, okay, how am I going to help this person be successful? It's not by being upset with them.
Yeah.
It's by pulling up next to them and saying, hey, look, I want you to be successful. I care about you. And so I want to make sure you get this.
Yeah.
And you got to do it with, there's no better word than love. You got to do it with love.
And I also think I also will throw humility in there. You've got to understand where that person's coming from. And you've got to realize that just because it's commonplace to me or you doesn't mean that it's the first thing that comes to their mind every time, obviously, or we wouldn't be talking about it 7 times in a row. We've got to come with humility and empathy and realize that even if we're frustrated, first of all, call your frustration, let them know you're aware you got frustrated. I did it today. I had a call, wrote back to one of the people I was with, and I just said, hey, I want you to know I'm sorry. I got wound up. And she said, the fact that you're reaching out to me and letting me know that you are self-aware enough to know that you got excited or fired up makes me trust you more. And I was like, all right, so if you feel it, say it. And to put a bow on it, I think the hardest part about I love your patience. And one word, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna keep us going because we've got a couple more minutes here, but I wanna know what you do for fun outside of work, because I know you spend a lot of time at the whiteboard doing this.
Yeah. Indeed,
tell me what you do.
Well, top of the list is going hunting and fishing with my son.
Awesome.
Which I just got back from last night.
Where'd you go?
We went up to Lake Fork.
Oh my gosh. One of the best bass lakes in the country.
Yeah, big bass country. And man, it was windy. I mean, but 25 to 40 mile an hour winds. So we were looking for any kind of protection from the wind in these coves and stuff like that. But we had a massive blast. We had a ton of fun. We were fishing on beds where, the bass were bedding up, and that's a whole different ball game and all that kind of stuff. But then
what were you throwing, like glide baits or what were you throwing out there?
No, we were throwing in the beds. You're throwing a crawdad because you want them to think that something's coming after their eggs.
Yeah.
And so that was when we were bed fishing, but we came across a school of spotted bass.
Oh, wow.
And we got this one school and it just became comical. My son and I, we caught 50 fish in an hour.
Unbelievable.
And it was so much fun. It was just laughing and every cast, it was like wham, 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 wham. And they were just frenzying. It was just crazy.
Were those top water or how far down were you guys?
I did a few top water, but the ones that we were catching, the 50 that we caught doing on a drop shot.
Okay.
So we had a worm about high off of a drop shot.
It down. There you go.
And just drag that drop shot across the area. It was a drop off where there were some rocks and things like that, and they were just hanging out there.
That's so
and we
fun.
just drag it through there, and they just destroy it.
Love it. Love it. All right. One more thing. I do think there's a rumor that you like RC cars and planes.
Yes.
which you want to see a full-size adult male act like a 4-year-old, just put a remote control anything in their hands.
Absolutely.
Tell me,
It's
how
so
did you
much
how
fun.
did you stay involved in that? Was that you get back into it with your son when he was growing up, or?
Yeah, so I gave him an electric RC car that was kind of this off-road little truck. It was, kind of like a Tahoe.
Yeah.
It was made by Traxxas, and they got good reviews and all that kind of stuff. And he had a blast with it. And he was like, "Hey, Dad, I wonder if there are any tracks or anything where we can go race it." And so I found him a track out kind of near Hutto in Thornhill, and we went out there, and he went and raced and got his clock cleaned the first time. And then so he was in the first heat, and then the next heat they were running nitromethanes.
What?
These little two-stroke nitromethane engines.
That's
and
crazy.
They're loud. I mean, they're so loud. And they fired him up, and it was so loud, and his eyes just went like this. And he goes, "Dad,
now this is cool.
I gotta have one of those." And I
That's
said, "Well,
funny.
start mowing, buddy." And he mowed lawns all summer to buy
great.
a nitromethane rig.
That's
He
so
bought his
fun.
own nitromethane rig, and then next thing you know, he was on the podium.
That is so badass.
6 months later, after he got his nitromethane, 6 months later, he was on the podium.
That's so great. And is he still in
And
it?
it was, yeah.
Dude,
And now
I love it.
we do airplanes as well. So we're flying airplanes as well.
Do you know who Tyler Perry is?
Yeah.
Have you seen his
Comedian.
collection?
No, I didn't know
Go
he
on
was into the
YouTube
sport.
and Google. He's a producer. He's produced a lot of movies that you'll know and television shows that you know, and he's incredibly successful. Go YouTube his RC plane collection. I think he has an incredible RC plane collection.
Oh, man.
And he lives outside of Nashville, and he's got this strip in his backyard. And he's either got a 737 or a BBJ or something that's scaled down, but literally like 4 engines. Anyway, it's crazy. So I love that that's a hobby.
That is so fun.
I love fun hobbies. I love unique hobbies, and it's what makes us different. So, well, hey, I got to wrap us up, man. But
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you. I appreciate you on many levels. First of all, thank you for being a friend to me and trusting in me to talk to your clients and engage with your clients. And also, thanks for just not taking yourself too seriously and be willing to take a joke and be a good friend.
Absolutely. Well, the feeling is mutual, my friend. And, that's the most beautiful thing in our world, in my estimation, is the ability to see a problem that a client's having and then have the confidence to be able to say, "Is that something you want help with?"
Mm-hmm.
And if they say yes, then being able to have that confidence to say, "Let me introduce you to somebody," and knowing that person is going to be able to help them. And that's what you and I have. And that's worth gold.
Well, listen, brother, I really appreciate you. I'll talk to you very soon. And again, thanks for all you do. Thanks for joining us in the Scalability Code.
You bet.
Take care, Byron.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of the show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.